Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? Saturday, the Saints and Carl Granderson agreed to a contract extension. The deal is a pretty significant one. A $52 million, 4 years, $52 million, with $35.3 million in guarantees. By the way, according to ESPN Stats and Info, the $35.3 million in guarantees is the fourth most by an undrafted player ever. Tony Romo had the most guaranteed money when he got $55 million as far as an undrafted free agent. We've talked about Granderson a good bit because of the deal that he's on right now, which was a 2-year deal worth $5.2 million. And he just had about $250,000 guaranteed. Like, the guarantees on his current deal are $240K. So Carl Granderson, if you don't remember the backstory, was a really electric edge rusher coming out of Wyoming. But he had some off-the-field issues. He was actually serving jail time in the summer of 2019. He had been arrested for inappropriately touching women while they slept while he was in college. And originally agreed to a plea deal that was he would avoid jail time, and then ultimately that got thrown out by different. We don't need to go into all the specifics, but just for the record, there was off the field issues. But he's been a model citizen, so I don't know what happened then, what the accusations were. I'm not trying to dig all that up. It was part of his past. So he got here as an undrafted free agent. He would have been drafted, but for the off the field stuff. That I remember we went through that repeatedly with Mike Detillier when Mike was coming on with us every week. About Granderson, who he had graded as a football player very high, would have been a drafted player, but had the off-the-field issues. So Granderson goes undrafted. When he gets out of jail, he joins the New Orleans Saints, and he's been with the Saints since 2019. And he's flashed. One of the things he's done, certainly, is he has gotten much bigger. Granderson is that, he's listed at 6'5", 261. He certainly looks much bigger than 261, but he's become that big defensive end, and he has been effective. Since 2019, again, now this is his fifth season in the league. Carl Granderson has played in 57 games. He's got 17 sacks in his 57 games played. Let me compare that to someone like Marcus Davenport, who, of course, was a first-rounder that the Saints moved up to get. Remember, 57 games played, 17 sacks for Granderson. For Davenport, 64 games played, 21 and a half sacks. So he's got about 4 more sacks in 8 more games played, or 7 more games played. But, of course, has been a starter. He's started 33 times, whereas Granderson has been a rotational guy. Granderson's only started 10 times in his career. 10 starts in his career. 3 in 2021, 4 last year, and now the 3 games this year. So Granderson, as a rotational player, has been more productive than Marcus Davenport was as a starter, who was a former first-round pick and obviously was very often injured. What do we always say? The best availability, or the best ability is availability? Well, Carl Granderson's been available. Played in just 8 games as a rookie, but has not battled injury. 15 games in the COVID year, 15 games in 21, 16 games a year ago, and now he started all 3 games so far this year. So he's been available, but has never been a full-time starter. And Carl Granderson has been productive. So far, 3 games this year, 2.5 sacks, and 2 tackles for loss. Last year, in 4 starts, 16 games played, 5.5 sacks, and 9 TFLs. This year, so far, through 3 weeks, this is according to Pro Football Focus, Granderson and Cam Jordan each have 11 quarterback pressures. That's the most pressures by a duo in the NFL up until this point in the season. So these 2 guys right now have been a really good 1-2 punch, and Granderson, clearly, the Saints see him as the guy to replace Trey Hendrickson. You had Cam Jordan. Hendrickson, of course, was a third-round pick out of FAU. He had the blow-up year, and then as a free agent ended up signing the big contract with Cincinnati because, as we say all the time, you can't pay everyone. You have to decide who you pay, and the Saints couldn't afford to keep Trey Hendrickson, so they lost him in free agency. The biggest question right now about Granderson in this deal is, why now? Why, after or going into week 3 of his first season as a starter, are you paying him this contract? That's the really... I want to choose my words carefully because I don't want to say concerning, but curious is fair. Because Carl Granderson, and again, I'm not opposed to paying a player, especially a productive player. You just paid Cesar Ruiz $42 million. Carl Granderson, to this point, has been a more productive player, but Cesar Ruiz, at least, has been available for you throughout his career and has been a starting player for you. He's not been great, but he has been available and he has been a starter for you. There's two sides of it. Number one, I understand wanting to avoid the bidding war. You're trying to avoid the free agent bidding war that could come if Granderson, let's say Granderson goes and on this trajectory ends up with he's got 2.5 sacks through 3 games. Let's say he ends up on this trajectory with, I'll even say conservatively, 12 sacks. I mean, he's pacing for 15 sacks, thereabouts. Let's say he has 12. Goes into free agency. Can the Saints afford to pay him? Maybe not. So I understand the Saints not wanting to have a repeat of the Hendrickson situation where there's a guy that you want to keep, but you get outbid for him. And if Granderson has a great season, continues on this trajectory, and his value goes up, someone may end up paying more than you pay today. So in that respect, I do understand it. The question, the curious part of this is you are paying someone top 10 defensive end money in the NFL on a very small sample size. As we mentioned, Carl Granderson has started 10 games in his NFL career. 10. Now, you have him in the building every day. He spent his entire career in New Orleans. He's been a model citizen, and he won that defensive end job this year. But if you look at the defensive end salaries, the contracts in the NFL right now for defensive ends, the total value of the contracts. Nick Bosa's deal in San Francisco set the market. Myles Garrett, Von Miller, Max Crosby, Eric Armstead, that's your top 5. Robert Quinn is 6. Emmanuel Ogbah with the Dolphins, 7. Leonard Williams with the Giants, 8. John Franklin Myers with the Jets, 9. And then Carl Granderson. Carl Granderson's $52 million contract makes him the 10th highest paid defensive end in the NFL. He's paid as a top 10 defensive end in the NFL. Ahead of Chandler Jones. I mean, he's ahead of some of the best pass rushers in the league. Cameron Jordan's deal is the 23rd richest deal for a defensive end in the NFL right now. Congrats to Carl Granderson. He's worked hard, came in as an undrafted free agent, has been a productive player, has been an available player, and may this year prove to be a dominant player. But the Saints took a really big risk here, paying Carl Granderson top 10 money, top 10 NFL defensive end money for a guy that started 10 games in his career. We'll see if it pays off. So far this year, so good. But that jury's still out. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.